Hello, this is the Net Hero podcast. I'm Sumit Bose, and this podcast is all about business and doing better for the planet. It's not an eco podcast, we're not green warriors. We believe that business is good and business will make the difference, but it's about holding businesses to account. So if you're interested in what we're doing to try and make things better, to stop our polluting of the planet, to stop our global warming, to stop us driving around in cars that are polluting the air that we breathe, this is the podcast for you. It's all about business, it's about invention, it's about entrepreneurs, scientists, and frankly, there's a few wild cards as well. Do hope you enjoy listening to this episode, and make sure you subscribe and follow us on your social media platforms, and please check out our two news websites, energylivenews.com and Future Net Zero. On with the show. I am real. I'm not AI. And this podcast is real. We've even got a real guest this week. But let's be truthful. It doesn't matter who you are. I think AI is now affecting all of us in our lives, whether it be Google. When you use Google, it's got an AI mode. When you go and look at doing sort of any kind of research, people are using it. People of all ages, kids, my little one already knows what AI is. And of course, I grew up, because I'm of that age, thinking it's going to kill us, because I'm terrified of Terminators coming back from the future and all of that. Nick's laughing. But the reality is, AI is absolutely determined by one thing, which we probably don't talk about enough, and that's energy. Because we never think about it. We never think that when we pick this up and we send a text, there's actually energy being used, right? So the energy demands of AI are going to be incredible. Some predictions say that by not even in 4 years' time, 945 terawatts of energy, that's about 3% of global energy, will be needed to use for just AI alone. Forget all the other things that computers do just for AI. So where are we with this? Have we looked at however much promise AI has, is there a limiting factor? And could it actually be something that scuppers our attempts to get to net zero? So today I'm joined from the good old US of A, from San Francisco, from a man who's been around the streets of San Francisco, the CEO of Octopus Energy US, Nick Chassett. Is it Chassett or Chassett? How would you say it?
Facet.
Nick, hello.
Great to be here, Sumit. Thank you.
Thank you for getting up so early. That's the main thing.
Well, as I was saying, as a proper technology company CEO, I was
Yeah,
up at 2:30 in the
of
morning,
course.
7 workouts already today.
Brilliant.
Amazing
Power,
stuff.
power shakes and sales. That's what it's about.
Exactly right.
Um, just tell us, we were talking just before we started recording. People know Octopus here, obviously, and it's become quite a big brand over the last 10 years. But it's not the same thing in America. So give us a kind of little potted history of what the difference is in the energy market in America to what it is in the UK.
Well, interestingly, the energy market in America is, in many states at least, is quite a bit less advanced when it comes to the ability of consumers to choose their suppliers. So while it is now just absolutely normal in the UK or in France, Italy, Germany, for consumers to go out and shop for electricity plans like they might shop for a mobile plan.
Yeah.
That is not the case in the US. Texas is really the one state in the US where consumer choice for electricity looks and feels like it does in Europe. Go outside of Texas to California, where I live, or Nevada, or Florida, and consumers don't have the ability to choose their plan. There you have, existing fully integrated utilities that both own and operate the wires that also sell the electricity to consumers. So because there is not that ability to go direct to consumer in a lot of the US, we've adjusted how we think about delivering the delightful Octopus experience. So in Texas, we sell electricity direct to consumer.
Right.
We offer them the Octopus app, Intelligent Octopus, all of our amazing,
Yep.
wonderful tariffs Texans can benefit from. But in California, for instance, we're actually partnering with one of the large utilities in Southern California Edison, to help them give their customers the Octopus experience.
Okay.
So we are a service provider to them, and we have built a version of our Octopus app that they are then giving to a select set of customers who might have an electric vehicle or a battery or a thermostat.
Yeah.
And then we are helping to manage those devices to help save the consumer some money and create space on the network for building new big data centers, things like that.
Of course. So the market in America is a weird one then, isn't it? Because here in the UK, I'm sure you know about it, you have your big sort of generators, right? Whether it's a turbine or whether it's a gas power, and then you have the pipes that take it, the national transmission system, the big grids. Then you have the DNOs, the smaller grids. So in California, for example, you said the the people who give you the power, who make the power, and the wires that get to your home, it's all the same company then, is it? And that's the same people you buy off.
In California, it's actually even more complicated than that. So
Okay.
California has a competitive market for generation. So
Oh,
most of the power plants are owned by competitive suppliers.
okay.
And so you'll have big and smaller companies that will build gas plants, solar and wind farms,
Yeah.
batteries, and the like. And then they sell that power into a centralized market.
Ah,
But the buyers are more limited, right? So the buyers from that centralized market are going to be the integrated retail and distribution and transmission companies. So um, in Northern California, you have Pacific Gas and Electric that operates
I've heard of
gas
them. Yep.
and
Yep.
electric
Yep.
infrastructure, and then they also serve electricity, retail electricity to consumers as well.
So when I get my bill sitting in San Francisco, it'll say whatever the name of that company is, and it's for everything, right? So it's how much I've used, the cost of the wires and the pipes, and whatever generation taxes are. It's just, but it's not
Right.
from if I move 500 meters that way into a different county, I might get a different one completely, but I can't swap.
Yeah. It's even more complicated than that, but generally, yes, that's right. But no. If you move from San Francisco to Marin County,
Yeah.
you're still PG&E still owns the network, so you're
Okay.
still a PG&E customer.
Oh, okay.
And then if you move, you really have to move quite far away because there's not a distinction between the transmission network and the distribution network. There's not a national grid and then a DNO.
But
There's
there's no
just
way
one
I
company
can
that does it
sit.
all.
I can't sit in New York and have that company. When I move to LA, I can't choose that company and go, you know, I really enjoyed them. No
That's
chance.
right. That's right. That's right. No
So,
chance.
where is the state? Before we talk about AI, which I want to concentrate most of this chat on, we always look at America and we always look at kind of what you're doing. And you've had a lot of changes lately, obviously, with Trump's ideas of where things are going. But in general, you know, America still leads globally in terms of where the power positions go. What's the state of the net zero side of things? You know, Octopus has built its reputation in the UK of trying to help consumers reduce their emissions, right? And I assume it's the same over where you are. So when you look at America now, we always think there's a bit in New York and there's loads in California, and the rest of them just like to have 10-gallon hats and 50,000-gallon cars burning loads of fuel. That's probably not the right picture because I know that there's hydropower, I know there's other things happening, and states, you know, I've seen all the stuff about how the states are reacting to some of the changes. Would you say that America is still very much the fossil fuel country that we thought of maybe 20 years ago?
Yeah. So I would say the answer is yes and no, right?
Okay.
America is absolutely a fossil fuel country when it comes to production.
Right.
I think the US now may be one of the top three, if not the largest producer of oil.
Yep. Yep.
Tremendous natural gas production as well.
Yep.
And a lot of it for domestic consumption, obviously a lot is also for export now.
Yeah.
But the story gets a little more complicated when you think about, what types of electricity generation technologies are being deployed and, the adoption of electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Certainly, there's been a step function change in how many utilities and businesses are talking about net zero, and the government certainly, since President Trump was elected. And I'd say there's much less of a conversation about net zero for net zero's sake or clean energy for net zero's sake. That's a better articulation. And much more of a conversation around what are the things that we can build fastest and at the
Yeah.
lowest cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just so happens that in most of the US, solar and storage is the fastest, cheapest, and most reliable source of new power generation available. Certainly, we are seeing a lot of new gas generation being
Yeah.
built associated with AI data centers. A lot of them are being built actually in a manner that is co-located with big data centers. The argument is I need to build my data center as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
speed at which I need to connect to the network is faster than the ability of the utility to build the necessary infrastructure to support my connection. If I build a big gas plant co-located with my data center, I can
Yes.
connect faster.
Yeah.
That is happening. That obviously is detrimental to sort of our net zero targets and efforts. But it is also the case that we're building more wind, solar, and storage than ever, particularly
Yeah.
solar and storage, because there are only so many gas turbines that are available, right? There's really three companies out there that make a product for these utility scale gas plants, Mitsubishi, Siemens, and GE. And
Yeah.
all of them have very publicly said, get in line 2029, 2030, 2031 is the earliest you can get a new unit. Interestingly, while California may be the state that is most well known for its net zero policies,
Yeah.
it is no longer the leader in the US when it comes to the deployment of clean energy.
No way.
That is Texas. Texas
That
now,
makes
I
no
know it's right.
sense.
Well, I think it serves a function of the economic realities of clean energy today.
Yeah. Yeah.
That solar and storage is faster and cheaper.
Of
And
course it is.
in
Yeah. Yeah.
Texas, they're looking for faster and cheaper, not necessarily cleaner, but they're also, when it comes down to it, they are also going to pick the fastest and cheapest thing.
Yeah.
And if that's clean, that's great. Now, obviously, there are some folks in government, both in Texas and the federal government, who would argue, we want to force you to do the slower and more expensive thing, even just so that it's fossil fuel.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
And
course.
that's quite a big debate happening in the US at the moment.
Well,
But
it's funny you say that because people say he's completely nuts and all of that. I see it different. I see a difference with Trump because he's keen on nuclear energy. He's keen on fusion. He would allow. I think he's not that stupid that people think that he's doing the oil and gas. I see it because it's cheaper and he wants to take the market share away from the Chinese renewables. Right. So that's one thing there. But I have seen, like you say, you are investing in solar as a nation. You are investing in wind. You're investing in lots of hydro as well, not in probably where you are, but in other parts that we've seen it. So, is it sometimes a bit unfair that the image of America for you is very similar to what people think of China, which is they're doing stuff, but actually they're burning a lot more? Or do you think it's a fair reflection of how we see it over here in Europe?
I'd say the fair reflection of what's happening in the US is a much greater push towards free markets.
Yeah,
But without the willingness to account for the real externality of climate change in that market pricing.
gotcha.
So you create a dynamic where you're probably not necessarily fully accounting for the cost of the alternative, which is fossil fuel, or we're not fully accounting for the full cost of the production of that fossil fuel. Um, and so that's bad from a climate perspective. That's actually bad business from my perspective because those externalities are real. Someone's going to have to pay for them. But
So,
because
so
of that emphasis on
yeah,
markets, you
yeah,
are seeing market solutions for clean energy come to the fore
that's
and
exactly what
scale.
happened. Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's important.
So, in a way, what you're saying is people are being led by their wallet. If you can build solar cheaper and quicker, just do it.
Yeah, exactly right. That's
So
exactly right.
the because here we've had a real moral argument which is going on, which you clearly must know about, which is now shifting because the cost of it is so high. In America, it seems to be going the other way. They've done the cost, and maybe they'll now transition to do more green if it's cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, I'd actually argue that, some of the cuts to the Inflation Reduction Act
Yeah.
actually have been net good for consumers because there were big areas of expenditure that I
Bloated.
think
Yeah.
were not going to deliver real benefits. This is a bit of a controversial statement, but the amount of money we were spending on hydrogen in the US was not going to get us anywhere
No,
from a
I know.
climate perspective. There were going to be tens of billions of dollars or more spent on these hydrogen hubs.
Yeah.
To what end?
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's a good thing that the market forces have pushed them away. I think there's a very interesting analog a bit in offshore wind as well. So
Yeah.
I believe that the case for offshore wind across the Northeast is quite strong. Offshore wind off of New York State or
Of course. Yeah.
Massachusetts, New Jersey, is quite strong. You don't have the same solar resource
Yeah.
that you have in California. You don't have the space to build onshore.
You've got the bloody
You
Atlantic. Yeah.
so the case is strong,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so some of the actions that the Trump administration has taken to hinder offshore wind development
Doesn't make sense.
have been anti-market, actually. Uh, but I think the case is a bit different on the West Coast, where there's been this push for floating offshore wind. And there's been this sort of sense that, well, no matter what the cost is, we're going to build floating offshore wind because it's part of our net zero strategy. And, I'd argue that 85% zero carbon electricity supply and affordable, which may not include offshore wind in the near term, is a heck of a lot better than 100% clean energy with offshore wind and unaffordable.
Yeah.
And actually, from an absolute carbon perspective, I think the evidence supports it because you want consumers to electrify. You want
Of
consumers
course.
to adopt electric vehicles.
Yep.
You want consumers to adopt heat pumps. You want businesses to adopt process electric process heat. And if you have so spiked the cost of the electron by investing in hydrogen and floating offshore wind in California, you actually are reducing your competitiveness relative to natural gas for
Well,
heating, cooling, and driving oil. So
it's
I
funny you
think
say
those
that.
have been
That's the
unintended consequences,
yeah.
but probably good things in an absolute sense for net zero.
Well, that's the exact debate we're having here, which was we plowed onto these things, and now suddenly the very costly chickens are coming home to roost on that. But let's park that. Let's talk about you talk about all of those things, and you talked something earlier very interesting about data centers. In the UK, we've gone to the idea that small modular nuclear reactors will help to power AI. In America, you're talking about gas. Let's take one step back. I said right at the beginning I think that 3% is estimated by the IEA by 2030 of the demand, global demand for energy just for AI. So before we talk about kind of what you think is the right power solution, where do you see this AI kind of uh, voracious consumption? Because there are some people saying that actually, as AI gets smarter, it'll use less power. It'll help us to build these things. And the other thing is, hang on a second, you're still going to have loads of servers and do it. So where are you looking in the next 10 years, seeing the growth of AI? You personally, or as Octopus, where do you see the picture of how energy hungry it'll be?
I generally think we are overestimating the demand for AI energy in the short run and probably underestimating it in the long run.
Right. Okay.
And,
Explain
and
more.
I, and I say that because we're in sort of in a period of exuberance right now, investment exuberance. I think I've heard a statistic that the first half of 2025, U.S. GDP growth was 3.5%. Of that, over 3% was related to AI
Yeah.
data center construction. And
It's like
and
a gold rush,
certainly,
basically, you're saying.
yeah, right. And so, I think you run into the logistical challenge, the real logistical challenges of building that much power generation and just sourcing all of the materials, the steel, the concrete, the workforce to do these things. Those are challenges. But I also just think at some point in time, these things have to wash their face from a cost perspective. And we're many companies right now are flush with prospective investments, venture capital investments saying we think this AI is going to generate, gobs and gobs of revenue, and so we're willing to, invest very heavily. And you know, I think there are limited examples of those companies actually generating uh, that much revenue in the near term. So at some point there will be a mismatch between the return expectations of investors and the actual ability of many of these companies to deliver those terms in the near term. And that will result in a bit of a crunch and a
Right.
slowdown.
Yeah.
And but I also don't think we can underestimate the uh, the the transformational effect that AI is going to play across our economy, and it is power hungry. I think will AI data center loads become more intelligent and be able to sort of be
Hmm.
more efficient with when and how they use electricity? Absolutely. We're already starting to see um, a real push both within the data centers and in the surrounding areas to pair flexibility, load flexibility with data center development. Because it may be that if you're training for a training data center, they don't need power 24/7, 365.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. And so if you can align those peaks of demand with periods where you can turn down electric vehicle charging at night, well, then you actually reduce the amount of energy you need for your entire system. You increase utilization. So I think there's a push there, and these very much are. We're using very many of the same AI technologies to develop these efficiency solutions for AI data centers that are being used for consumer products or in Chat GPT. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think there's a mutually reinforcing effect that's going to come into play. But I don't want to underestimate the demands of AI energy in the medium term. And look, there we have a lot of analogs, right? If you
Yeah.
looked
Yeah.
at 1998, 1999, you had the dot-com
Hmm.
boom, then the
Yeah. Yeah. Of
bust.
course you did.
At that time, if you had said, "Oh, I don't think the internet is going to be, it's overstated. There's too much froth." That's right. In the short run, there was, but I think if you had then made a broad-based set of investments in a bunch of those companies, I think you would be very happy right now with your investment portfolio.
So you
And
think
I
we
don't
might
know if you
follow?
understate
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you really can't understate the transformational effect that the internet has had
Of
over the last
course.
25 years. AI is going to have that same, I think, but even more so.
I mean, the thing about where you are, this is that, California, Silicon Valley, all of that. You are the home of where all this is happening, right? And I know there's a lot going on in China, but what's the energy patterns? I mean, have you seen loads more data centers going up? And if you have, are they all just being powered by gas, or are they starting to do things like maybe build wind turbines, or even look at small modular reactors coming down the line? What's the main power source right now?
The main power source is the power sources that are available. So no one's really looking at small modular reactors in the near term. I know there have been contracts signed
Yep.
and commitments, but the
It's still in the
energy space
distance.
is one that is littered with commitments for interesting novel new technologies that never get built.
Okay.
So I am not holding my breath for SMRs. If anything, I would argue that fusion is a more exciting technology than the SMR because the
Agreed.
SMR has a lot of similar challenges to large nuclear from a siting perspective. Who
Yeah.
wants to have a nuclear power plant in their backyard?
Yeah, yeah, too right.
And the technology is not ready to scale. I think we're years away. By the time that it is, I think we will see massive progress in fusion. And you don't have the same challenges with
No,
fusion that you do with
no.
nuclear. So I'm going to put that one aside.
Right.
Today, the data centers that are being built and supported by solar, storage, and gas. Full stop. Those are the types of power that are being
Hmm.
built to support big data centers. And I think the really most thoughtful and forward thinking data center developers are doing a mix of both, right? They're saying, I'm building a very large battery on site. Depending on where my location is, I might build a large solar farm on site. And then I will likely also have a gas peaker because there are going to be 25% of the hours, 30% of the hours during the year that solar and storage facility is not going to be efficient to run or able to run, in the winter time as an example. And then I'm going to run the gas plant. And I'm going to blend those two. And the overall emissions profile of that is actually not that bad.
Yeah.
So those two things together are going to give me the prime power I need to be able to expedite the construction of my data center. And then over time, as the overall network gets built, you just run the gas less and less.
Do you think wind has any place in this? Because in the UK we've got wind, so we people are thinking about putting up small wind farms, or whatever. You don't really think that's a big player? You mentioned gas, solar, and storage.
I think wind definitely has a role to play. I think we just, in many of the places we're building large data
Yeah,
centers, the West, the Southwest,
yeah,
and the Southeast, it's the Sun Belt where we're building a lot
yeah.
of
Okay,
data centers.
yeah, yeah.
And it just, solar is great
It's
there. I
quicker, isn't
think,
it? Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think as you start to think about building data centers more in the Midwest, Ohio, Wisconsin,
yeah.
that's where um, wind is playing part of the story. Um, but my observation to date has been solar has been the much bigger beneficiary and storage than has wind.
One of the things we don't talk about, and I know you've done some work in it, is water. How much water is used for these? Can you explain why water is such a big consumable in AI? Because I don't, most people wouldn't think about it. People think, oh,
Well,
you,
60% of AI data center electricity demand is related to cooling.
okay.
And so the water is really a cooling measure.
It's incredible, isn't it? Still using
And so
water.
that's actually, I think, where it's not our business, but
Yeah, yeah,
a lot of innovation and a lot of investment today is going into improving the efficiency of cooling
yeah.
data centers and water efficiency. Because I think that's absolutely right. In many places, actually, the bigger constraint is going to be access to water than access to power, or a co-equal constraint. And so you're often now seeing data centers siting in places where you have wastewater, and they're taking wastewater streams or waste agricultural water and running that through their systems. And it's one of the reasons why there is interest in building data centers, in places like Washington, the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, because it's cool there. So you don't need to use as much water because
That's
it's
it.
just cooler, more times of the year.
Looking at all of this, you paint a picture of that the bubble and then not the bubble. You know what you're saying there. So your best guess for you're using data yourselves. You're using AI. You're quite a big leader in the AI field. I know that with Octopus here for sure. How much do you think companies like yourselves and all the people who are doing this need to start to think, okay, how much do I think about my footprint in this, the AI net zero space, as alongside my normal footprint for what I'm doing?
I think if you're serious about net zero, you have to start really having pretty deep conversation about how you are using AI and how the emissions associated with your AI workloads. Um, it was just announced, I believe, yesterday. Google is doing the first uh, power purchase agreement for a gas plant with CCS,
Yeah, yeah,
carbon capture and sequestration.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, it's going to be the prime mover of a lot of emissions because the workloads are so great. 5x, 10x the energy use for an AI data workload than a typical compute workload. Um, and and so some of that is going to be building new renewables. Some of it's going to be a question of when you use AI. And not necessarily when you or I go on our phone and search Chat GPT, but it's on the back end. how is ChatGPT going to manage when it pings the servers to do
Gotcha.
the
Yeah, yeah,
work?
yeah,
And
yeah.
can it do that in ways that align with when solar is being produced? Or can it do so in ways that can say, well, I'm going to do a workload, but I'm going to reduce a different workload, and I can take the benefit of that because that workload, that load would have occurred but for this payment that I'm making to that consumer to turn down their thermostat or not charge their EV.
Is the ironic truth is that AI will determine AI in a sense. It'll end up
That's probably right. It's AI will determine AI. That's right. I think that's right. Uh,
to end with
it's funny to think about.
where do you see the short-term future for kind of how the AI picture will paint out? Let's just look at the next couple of years in your view.
I think we're still going to see massive investment and I think in some cases overbuilding of infrastructure associated with these sites. I do think we're going to see some big AI names, companies, I'm not sure which ones, struggle financially in ways that are entirely predictable, but will create some pain in the economy. But I also think that consumers will just continue to use AI in ever more parts of their lives, right? Both consciously and unconsciously. And so the long-term signals will continue to be there, but I think we will see a little bit of um, disruption and uncertainty in the short run with some of the companies that have spent hundreds of billions of dollars without a clear view of how they're going to pay it back.
And the energy demand in the short term, at least, will keep going.
And the energy demand in the short run will keep going. And that's probably not a good thing for net zero. We will burn more fossil fuel in the short run because of that. And that's going to be a deficit we're going to have to make up one way or another.
Nick, it's been brilliant talking to you. Thank you so much. Really insightful stuff. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for
Really
getting
appreciate it.
up
It's fun.
in the middle of
Yeah,
your
no,
kind
my
of
pleasure.
your
No,
power shakers there.
yeah, exactly. I'm gonna have to go get another one right now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mike. Pleasure talking to Nick Chassett from Octopus Energy US. Thank you for your time. Ladies and gents, let us know what you think about AI. Don't send a message on ChatGPT to me. Don't do that. No, no, look it up. Tell us what you think about the AI energy use, both here and, of course, in America. Give us your views. Get involved. If you want to be on the podcast, the email is nethero@futurenetzero.com. My thanks to Rob for the production this week. Catch you on the next episode.
You've just heard the Net Hero podcast from futurenetzero.com. Join us as we help you find ways to cut your carbon footprint as we head towards net zero. Subscribe and follow us on social media. futurenetzero.com. Better business, better planet.